Hello, welcome back to the Red Path. Today we're going to have a little chat about Dara's updated competitive list. Made a couple of little changes here and there since his Coventry GT exploits, and we're going to touch base and find out what's going on. So, Dara, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, man. As always, pretty good. Having a good time.
Hell yeah. So why don't you, let's just get it over and done with. Start off with telling us what your list is now. Like, what units we got in there. What's
Yeah,
changed? What are we seeing?
sure. So, for anyone who's like somewhat familiar with what I was running for Coventry, hasn't changed too much. So I've got Chaos Lord, my boy Mocker Lore. He's still rocking around with Gorefather. He's gonna do work at the my upcoming tournament next week. Then
Yeah.
we have the Dark Apostle with the 5+ invulnerable save, which fingers crossed it'll work in this one. And he has the poison him. We have our 4 5-man Berserker squads as usual. We've got our 2 10-man Cultist squads, and in the elites we actually have 3 Leviathan Dreadnoughts now instead of
Ooh,
2.
there's the spice.
It is, yeah, and yeah. Then following on from that, it's pretty much what you expect. We got the double drills, and yeah, I think that rounds out the list after that. Actually, yeah.
Raptors.
Oh, sorry, the 2 Raptor units and the Warp Talon Bomb. So yeah,
Yes.
basically the change was drop the Helldrake because it,
We
it
know
was
why.
it was
We know
it
why.
was very very bad to say the least. And yeah, then I reined in one of the Raptor squads, the bigger 8-man one, and turned that into a 5. So then freed up pretty much just enough points to bring a Leviathan in. Now, like the Leviathan wasn't really my first choice.
Okay.
I did really want to bring a Rhino with the Chosen inside it, with Chosen with Lightning Claws, because it was very cool, and also I have some like models ready for it, but just kind of like time caught up with me basically, like between Coventry and the GaleCon GT, and I just wasn't really able to get the time, unfortunately, to paint the Chosen up as much as I would have loved to. Just like got too many other painting stuff on my desk right now, so kind of was just like looking around thinking like, what can I get for those points. I did think about Red Butchers for quite
Yeah.
a while, because I was like, I can actually get a decent sized unit with this, but basically kind of came back to the whole thing of like, I don't really think I can afford to spend the 2 extra CP that they would require.
Yeah.
And then also I'm kind of like, what do they even want to do in this list? It's in a list with like 2 Leviathans and 2 drills. I don't know, do you really want a big Terminator, necessarily?
I can
So
see that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a weird one. I still have a feeling you can make the Red Butchers work. I'm just not really sure if my gameplay is suited to them right now. But yeah, that was basically the change. Like I had a couple of ideas with bringing a Rhino full of Berserkers, and then I was kind of like, no, it's I have enough Berserkers.
Fair enough.
And yeah, just tossing around some other ideas, and I kind of just kept coming back to the thought I had at Coventry multiple times where I was like, man, I'd really love a third Leviathan Dreadnought on the board right now.
Right.
And yeah, that kind of just came about because of that, I guess.
The Leviathan I've been seeing in lists across the board, including Imperium lists and obviously Chaos Space Marine lists. Leviathan's starting to establish a bit more of a presence, but by no means am I saying it's a meta choice, right? But I'm seeing it in like mid tier army lists. I think other people are getting onto the fact that the efficiency of its resilience is something, especially an army like World Eaters lacks, right? Even though it went from T8 to T7, you know better than anyone else at this point, I think, how much output your opponent has to put into that levy to really bring it down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think even since the book changed and we got the new Leviathan data sheet, like I've literally since then I've been a big kind of pusher for the Leviathan. I've always thought
Okay.
it was like very good value for its points, and that there's nothing really in the Chaos Space Marine Codex that can kind of fill a role for that point value.
Okay.
Like, it's different with the Loyalists because I think the Redemptor Dreadnought fills a very similar role, and it's a little bit cheaper. But for us, we don't really have an equivalent as such. Like, I can't really think of any unit that comes close to it. Maybe a Defiler. Like, that's the only thing I can kind of think of. But it's the whole footprint of the model is just, it's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And the thing I find about the Leviathans is just like, yeah, they're not amazing. Like, they're not, literally winning me games, but they're super, super reliable. Like, I can always expect a certain thing from it, and it'll always get that thing done.
Yeah.
In Coventry, like, at no point did I ever feel like my Leviathans underperformed. Like, they were always just, doing really honest to God work, salt of the earth kind of boys, just walking around and having a good time.
Yeah.
And sometimes they really show up. Like, sometimes they get into combat and they just delete something, and you're like, oh, cool, nice. I'm happy about that. And I just really, really like them, to be honest. I think they're definitely worth the CP. They're definitely worth the 220 points that you pay for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're just great in my opinion. I think if you know how to use them, like, it definitely took an adjustment for me when I was like, okay, it's not like a small knight at this point anymore. It's not like a powerhouse walking around, but like, it knows the kind of firepower it can take, and just popping that smoke stratagem on them as well is really, really important for keeping them alive. So
I mean, I agree with you. Whilst I've changed my list, I have run the Leviathan in mind for several months now, and whilst its damage output sometimes frustrated me, it still did the job it was in the list to do for me almost every game. It took firepower, allowing my actual true damage dealers, my Contemptors or my Drills or Berserkers, to be in a position to deliver. And I think the Leviathan is genuinely a good unit. I think it's well pointed. My only issue with it is it needs an extra couple of attacks for combat. That for me is frustrating, or a different option, but that's besides the point. When you're running three of them, there's nothing in the game that's going to survive three of them punching it. I just don't.
If there's ever a round where I get three of them into combat against one thing, I'll be sure to take a picture, because that would be pretty epic. But they're just cool. Like, sorry, go on.
I was just going to ask you a question, but go ahead and finish your thought there.
Yeah, it's just like, I had a couple of other like weird ideas floating around. One thing I really, really want to try, but it kind of doesn't work in my current list, is 2 or 3 Blood Slaughters. I was chatting with Mark of Khorne about them, and like, he's got some cool ideas for like reserving them and stuff, and I'm like, I like the way you can mess around with the deep strike charge, because if they harpoon something, you can get a nice buff to charging. And I think there's definitely something in a list that likes to run 2 Blood Slaughters. See, the problem for me is that, like, I really like my Raptors and Warp Talons. I think they're really, they score me a lot. Well, not so much the Warp Talons, but the Raptors score me an awful lot of points, and we all know what the Warp Talons do at this point. So it's really hard to justify dropping them for the sake of putting in Blood Slaughters, which I think at the end of the day, while they have a very attractive profile, at 9 wounds, I think they fall down a little bit too easy.
Yeah.
It's another thing that I definitely want to try, though. But yeah, like, just coming up to this tournament, it's like, I don't necessarily think the third Leviathan is like what I would absolutely pick if I had all my options available, but I don't really have the options I want available currently. Right. So I think just for this one, because like, it's very safe for me. I'm like, I know what a Leviathan's gonna do, so throwing a third one in is going to be a good time.
I don't think it's a bad choice at all. I think it could be incredibly oppressive for some opponents. So, speaking of that, obviously you've got GaleCon coming up next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you think your list is going to do, this triple levy list? How do you think it's going to do against either the armies you expect to face, or like, Boogeymen armies, the Orcs list and stuff like that? What do you think you've got in there that can maybe be an improvement over your Helldrake list? Which, by the way, that is what your list was called. It was the Helldrake list. Not the double
anything
list.
is an improvement over
Yeah.
the Helldrake.
Just don't
Yeah,
have a Helldrake and run 150
literally.
points under. Yeah.
That would have been better. Bring them as summoning points or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I know there are going to be some very strong, like Eldar of some type players,
Mhm.
so most likely Drakari players, I would say. So that's always going to be a really tough match. I do find that Drakari have a tough time actually bringing Leviathans down, which is nice.
Mhm.
I think they kind of the Leviathan will fall more to like weight of basically berserkers attacks, like that kind of a thing. That's where the Leviathan starts to hurt, rather than
Yeah.
like stuff like Dark Lances, because like you consider that you pop a -1 to hit on them, and like they have a 5+ invulnerable, and then they're reducing damage. The Dark Lance doesn't really like shooting them that much, so
Yeah.
I think having 3 around can stand to bully some Drakari lists a little bit, but they like conversely they don't really have excellent firepower to shoot the boats down. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. I think by virtue of having so much experience against them, I should be okay against Dark Eldar.
Mhm.
It's always going to be a very tough match. Like I still haven't beaten them with their new codex, but I can definitely take points from them.
Yeah.
And apart from that, yeah, so I think there's going to be some good Dark Eldar players for sure. There might be some very good Orc players there, which is going to be challenging again. But with the nerfs to some of the Orc lists, I think it'll make life a little bit easier. But I still think buggies are incredibly powerful and
Yeah.
incredibly
For
undercosted.
sure. For
And
sure.
if people have the models, I'm sure I'm going to see 9 buggies of 3 different varieties. And like I've played against that list. It's bloody oppressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be tough against those. Against Admic, I'm definitely less worried now after the nerfs. I think they can play into them a little bit better because just I suppose the volume of what you're facing into isn't as big, even though if the rules are still a bit busted, that's just kind of what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, there tends to be a lot of Space Marines and Imperium in general at like Irish events, which is always good for us because
Oh,
we
it's
love fighting
very
into
good
those
for us
armies.
right
Yeah,
now.
it's so good. I mean, yeah, like
Not as good as Night Lords or something, but
right, yeah. I think it's gonna be funny to see how disgusting the Warp Talon Bomb is in some games.
so
I just
excited.
I just really want to go first in some of the
Yeah.
games. Be a nice change from Coventry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like overall, I'm hoping like absolutely, kind of long reach hope to go 4-1.
Yeah.
I think I can do it if I really try hard and maybe think about swapping the Leviathan out. I'll have to
Really?
see. I'll have to see what else I have in my collection. Like I'm tempted by a Greater Possessed. Like
Yeah.
I think there's play there with the Warp Talons, like firing them off the board at the start of the game. I
Yeah.
think there's something there, but it's filling those like 150 points with something worthwhile. Like I was
Yeah.
even looking at Havocs, dude. I was like, are these guys bad? And I was like, see, a lot of me wants to take advantage of the change to the False Emperor, so I'm like maximizing the buff that her army got. And to do that, I would require the Chosen, which I can't get painted in time.
Yeah.
So it's a significant issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Here's my. Just talking of improving the Death to the False Emperor. Here's my 2 new
Hell
Berserker
yeah.
champions.
Nice.
But I'll
Yeah,
talk
I
about
mean,
them in another video. But yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's,
Lightning Claws on Champions is
yeah.
looking pretty hot right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear what you're saying there. Like if you drop the levy and you throw in the possessed, you're at 150 odd points, 155 depending.
Yeah.
That's enough for a Helldrake, Dara. Have you thought? No.
Pain.
That is a tough. Do you have any more Warp Talons painted? Enough for
No,
them? No.
unfortunately not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to bring another squad of Warp Talons as
Yeah.
well, but again, all my bits went into making my Raptors, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm not in a mental state to snip the arms
Oh
off my
no,
Raptors that I
that's
spent
fair.
a lot of time
That's
on.
fair. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. That is always
it's
that's a
tough.
problem for me as well. Is when you've got that kind of 100 to 200 points left. You've got your Zerkers, you've got your drills, you've got your kind of core killer unit, whether that's your Leviathan, Contemptor, Lord of Skulls, whatever, and you don't really know like what to put in there. For me, I always just throw in rhinos with cultists in them. I just fill up points, and then I end up removing it because I end up getting a different idea at the last minute. But that's
I would, I want to do that. That's
Yeah.
like what I want to do, but I have too many troops already, so I'm
Oh,
like,
right,
my
okay,
troops are full, and like that's the massive problem because like
right,
I was like, well, I could like migrate the berserkers into 8-man squads, and I was like, I really don't
no,
want to have big berserker squads. It's not it for me anymore.
yeah,
There's especially with the new changes, you just don't need big
you
berserker
don't need
squads. So
them, no.
I'm like, what do I do? Like, I even so like my biggest thing was in Coventry. I just felt like I didn't have the presence. I think I said that in the other video. I didn't have like the footprint on the board to be where I want to be. I think I needed that with infantry. So like chosen are perfect there because they're infantry that do that.
Hmm.
So I was like being like, okay, I could like knock a cultist squad out and put in a rhino full of like Chaos Space Marines. I think it was getting around like 8 Marines with like points for a thing
Yeah,
or two. And then I'm like, but I've just lost the cultist squad, so it's like my footprint doesn't really change aside
yeah,
from the fact that like yeah, there's some guys who are more survivable, and then there's a rhino which is reliable and good, obviously, but like I don't know, man. It's like it's really confusing for me. I'm like, how do I? I spent a lot of time
wait a
last night
minute.
on Battlescribe, like looking through things. Go
You've
on.
got two squads of cultists.
Yeah,
Two rhinos is 160 points.
that's true.
But the thing is, the problem with that is you're taking away. You're trading very good killing power or reasonable killing power wrapped up in solid survivability, which is the levy. The thing is, for me, because you're running the 5-up invuln prayer, two rhinos with squads of cultists in is, I really love that.
Yeah,
The reason I took it out of my list is because I'm not running the 5-up prayer. I'm running the Benediction of Darkness. So, I this is just a me thing. It's not. I'm not claiming this is like top advice. I just really do like the cultists in a rhino. I can't not like it because it's such a pain in the ass to kill. No one wants to
yeah,
shoot a rhino. No one wants to shoot a cultist. And then when it's got 5-up and it's pop smoke, but it's sitting on an objective, that's your drills not getting shot with guns that should be shooting drills. Like, but I don't want to persuade you there, man. I'm just
I
going
do
into my
see it
thing.
though. Yeah, I think the only problem is that like opens me up from maxing out, bring it down, which is like
Fuck it.
not really a big deal, but like
Yeah,
I don't like to have a list that can max a secondary. It's a weird thing for me where I'm like
that's
I
only
always like
10
to give my
points.
opponents. So two drills are two each.
Yeah.
Two leviathans are two each. Oh, I forgot I lost the Helldrake. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, we're okay. We're
So
okay.
that'd be 8,
Yeah,
and then two rhinos would be 10. But yeah, like,
yeah.
that
Actually, yeah, because I forgot losing the Helldrake is.
yeah.
Huh. Okay. I'm thinking.
Okay. But
I
yeah,
mean, I was looking at Predators last night, dude. I was like, I have a really nice Predator painted up. I'm like, will I?
I
Will
so
I? Will I?
want
Will
one.
I? I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I always keep a triple predator list because if I'm running predators, I'm running 3 of them. That's
yeah,
how
for
I'm
sure.
doing it. But yeah,
I like that this was like supposed to be like how my list has changed video,
and
but
now
now
it's changing.
I'm like now it's like a cry for help. I'm like, oh, somebody tell me what to do with these
Now
points.
I do think the triple levy. In some lists, running 3 of something like I ran 3 contemptors and a levy in one list, and it took too much away from the rest of the list. But the way you play your list, I think a third levy might, like you was talking about the Dark Lances or the Drakari thing, right? The Raiders shoot. That's a Dark Lance, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's going to take them at -1 to hit, and like depending on if you can get obscuring or minus dense cover for the others or whatever. If they're all shooting at 1 Leviathan, with the best dice rolls in the world, they need 3 raiders to hit, wound, and you to fail the save, right? Because of all the modifiers and the number of wounds there. However, that means they've got to roll max on everything. It's going to take them, I think, probably like 8 raiders with average dice to kill 1 Leviathan, or 8 Dark Lances, because I know they can. The Trueborn or whatever can shoot one out of there, and then you've got the
yeah,
Heat Lances from Talos and stuff like that.
yeah. They're a little bit less good because they're D.
Yeah.
Oh wait, are they like D6 plus
I've,
2 or something?
well,
They have a weird one.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're just slightly not as good, but
yeah,
I think, or shorter range, but whatever. You got to think. So if the sum total of what you lose in round 1 is a Leviathan, you've still got your main army left to counterpunch. And that one Leviathan will tank a hell of a lot. And if you're lucky, it will tank all the shooting, and then they'll have to charge in something. And yeah, a squad of, pretty much any Dark Elder infantry is going to take 1 or 2 wounds off a Leviathan, sadly. But then it's done its job, and you've still got 2 Leviathans left. That's just my thinking when you get that third one for redundancy in the worst case situation, kind of.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's
Don't
definitely.
hate it, man.
No, I don't hate it. It's like I'm saying, like I don't think it's bad to have the 3 at all. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be bringing it if I did.
Yeah.
It's just like I know that there's like a variation of this list that I really, really do want to run, and it just annoys me that I'm like I just know I'm not gonna make that deadline, which is just like it grinds my gears. But yeah, look, it's I don't know. If anyone has any interesting ideas, just shoot a comment down here, and let's see if we can come up with something fun, because it's an interesting conundrum I found myself in.
Yeah. That's always the best part, though. I love the list building phase and just solving those problems, and then realizing after you
fun.
go 1-4 at a GT that you didn't really solve the problems. But
No, you just made more. Literally, me, when I put the Helldrake in the list, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be so good, and then it's like, what the fuck did I put this guy in the list?
Oh god.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, if you'd have gone first in every game, you'd probably be, man, the Helldrake is OP broken.
Yep.
Everyone needs to buy 3 of them, or whatever. But yeah, all right, man. So, you've got to wait and see. You've got to see how this list development works against your, whatever list you end up running against. Hopefully, you don't have to fight every Jakari player, because it seems to be a lot in life. Really, it's like
I am eternally trapped in the Dark City.
Yeah.
I live there.
It's like I don't know if you've read it. There's a snippet in the Codex, like our 8th edition Codex, where World Eaters are like happily fighting. I don't know if it's in Kamara or somewhere, but there's like an arena where Jakari and World Eaters are just fighting each other as as a literal tournament. Like it's to the death and everything, but they're like, hey, this is kind of cool.
Yep.
So
I mean, that does feel like my life. I think I have played more Jakari in 9th edition than I have played all of Eldari in any other edition.
I think you've played more Jakari than anyone else in the game, quite frankly. Like, it's, hey, I played Jakari today. Hey, I played him yesterday as well. Like, that's the benefits of living, having a house
literally,
mate,
it's
so.
like, when we want to have a game, it's like, well, you're not going to bring your craft ruler Tau, so I wonder what it's going to be.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. All right, man.
Yep.
Well, I think that kind of wraps it up there. It'd be interesting to see. Obviously, we'll be following along as the tournament goes on. Trying to keep tabs and everything, and hyping you up and everything. But yeah, man. Thanks for letting us know, and good luck to you at the weekend.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
All right. All right, well, thanks everyone for coming and hanging out and watching. And give some comments below. Let Dara know exactly what you
help
would
me.
take. Yeah.
Please,
Give
get me
him
out of the
some
Dark
advice.
City.
All right, thanks everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe, and care.